matatus on the road.
Yes.
And is it all matatus or is it just the members?
It's all, not all actually. We command 80% of registered SACCO in Kenya. So we have over 480 registered SACCOs under us. Yes, Matatu Association is an advocacy docket that champions the rights and also the needs of, actually highlights the needs of Matatu owners, on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
Yes.
We've seen many times when we see road accidents, there will be a PSV vehicle involved, a Matatu involved. And of course, the spotlight then comes to you as the Matatu owners. What's happening in your sector?
I think I'd like to correct that. It's not always Matatu involved, or rather vehicles involved. Yeah, because if we're actually going to isolate that word Matatus, then we definitely become a target in regard when it comes to crackdowns. Yeah, and we all know why we become targets.
So let me say that the way I said it again.
Yeah.
Many of the accidents that we see on our roads will involve passenger service vehicles.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And many of them belong to one SACCO or another.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So what is it that causes us to see like matatus are constantly involved in, or matatus and buses are constantly involved in accidents?
Maybe if we just take a few, study of what has happened recently. A Probox has been involved in a road accident, a school bus, and a Matatu.
Yes.
Those are three different entities.
That's true.
So, again, I'll revert to the same question. It's not Matatu. It's anyone who is a road user becomes a culprit of
an accident. Okay.
Yes.
Now that, of course, many of your vehicles are on the road constantly throughout, you must have gathered a lot of information. Just looking at observation-wise, you can see what's happening on our roads. What, from your perspective, is causing the many road accidents that we are seeing currently?
I will say one of the key causes is poor infrastructure. Every year we have an increment of vehicle carrying passengers from point A to B, but we still maintain the same infrastructure. So, of course, every expansion warrants also an expansion in regards to where people operate. Yeah, so I will say one, poor infrastructure and engineering. Yes.
Expound on that a bit. What do you mean? When you say poor infrastructure, what exactly do you refer to?
Poor roads, lack of walking path. Infrastructures can really solve a big part of the mess or the carnage we see around. For instance, when you look at Thika Superhighway, some times ago, before it was restructured, there was a lot of traffic and overlapping. But right now, whether you like it or not, because of great engineering, you just have to follow one lane until you get to where you want to be. So overlapping becomes... it
has been reduced significantly.
It has reduced completely. Yeah. So I'll say that. Those are the things that needs to be looked at. A case of Sachangwan.
Yes.
You remember it was rampant a while ago.
Yeah.
But the moment they introduced the dual carriage, we said, the accidents really went down. Yeah, so I'll say one of the key reasons, one of the key causes of accident is poor infrastructure, poor road signage, poor lighting. Yeah? Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Where do you think driver behavior falls into the area of accidents that we see regularly on the roads? Where do you think this all plays in this?
That has been one of our biggest challenges because honestly, we don't have adequate training facilities, or rather, we don't have credited national training facilities for drivers ferrying our public. And I think we've been in consultation with different institutions in government to ensure we come up with a curriculum and also an accredited training institution for our Matatu drivers, to enhance behavior change and also ascertain their credibility of their driving license.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're saying an accredited PSV driver training school.
Yes.
Why is this important?
It is very important because in other countries, you actually can't be allowed to drive without proper training and certified driver's license. So I don't know why we allow that in Kenya.
But we have driver's licenses.
Yes.
That are only issued by one entity, that's the government.
Exactly.
The tests before you receive this license are only conducted by one entity, that's NTSA.
Yeah.
The driving schools that we have in this country are all accredited and licensed by government. You'd assume that all this thing that we are saying, then that means that you have a unified curriculum, a unified method of testing, and a unified licensing.
Unified licensing, yes. And if you agree with me, NTSA was just constituted just the other day. And one of the main things they do is renewal of the driving license. I have a driver's license, but I've never gone to NTSA for training or what do you call it? The process is not seamless.
The process of renewing your driver's license?
Exactly. No, it's not seamless. NTSA was just established just the other, I think 10 years ago. Yeah. And by that time we had Matatus. So again, it becomes very hard to ascertain when I'm going back for a renewal. Am I properly trained?
Okay.
How do you ascertain that? And you're ferrying public on a daily basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're advocating for is for a PSV driver to have their license renewed, they need to be retested.
Oh, definitely.
Right.
They really need to be retested because it's not just retesting. When you go to this institution, how we are rethinking the whole curriculum, there's a lot of things that will be emphasized. You know, there is etiquette, there is a customer relation, there is, what do you call it? Road manners. Yeah. Once that is instilled, we all agree education is key to lots of successes, and most of them lack that. You know, someone starts as a conductor, before you know they graduate into ferrying people, and we cannot ignore corruption is one of our biggest problem we have in this country. So it becomes very hard to ascertain whether this person is well trained to ferry public or not. So we really need to revise that. Yeah, because right now with the SACCOs, it becomes very easy to regulate how certain SACCOs behave. And I would like to pick up one of the SACCOs called 4NT and 2NK. They're one of the best well-behaved, and actually they are our members. Yeah. So if we bring back the capacity building within the SACCOs and enforce, instead of crackdown, proper training of our drivers, definitely we'll be achieving something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think it needs to look at the softer underbelly of this issue as well? Because we can talk about training. The very basic 1, 2, 3s of knowing how to drive. The issues of having the proper licenses to then be able to be on the roads in terms of a PSV and all of that. Going through vehicle inspection. You can have all your ducks in a row in terms of what you need. The, brick and mortar. But then there is the softer side, whereby we're talking about discipline. We're talking about road manners. We're talking about road rage. We're talking about a historic attitude that hangs over particular road users. How do you think that needs to be addressed? Because we can be honest that in a lot of cases where we do see an accident that involves a PSV, it's somebody who couldn't wait 2 seconds. It's somebody who wanted to, scream at somebody else who was using the road and an accident has occurred. It's somebody who was going to overtake when there's oncoming traffic and we've seen the loss of lives. We can't run away from that reality. What do you think needs to be done? Because I do believe that in this, there's not one person. In what we've seen in the last months, there's not one sector or one individual that can be blamed. Everybody has a part to play. So now in the part where we talk about indiscipline on the roads and lack of manners on the roads, what do you think needs to be done to be able to claw back on some of these things? Because I personally don't believe it is an issue of inspecting your vehicle, because you can have a brand new vehicle and you can have somebody can be a fantastic driver, but they got a stinking attitude and we put them on the road. The sector still carries, unfortunately, that image. How can we approach that issue?
I think I'd like to go back to my previous comment when I said infrastructure engineering, whether you like it or not. There is a way, if we achieve a different design, whether you like it or not, you'll be conformed. You'll conform to behave in a certain way.
You'll behave in a certain way.
Whether you like it or not. And that's where also now the Ministry of Roads comes in. Because once the road is designed in a certain way, whether you want to overlap or you don't want to overlap, there is no way out. You just have to follow the queue. As we also embark on driver training.
Right.
And capacity building. It's a collective responsibility. Yeah. And I'll also want to bring the ball back to the passengers who are being ferried. You have a right to tell the driver not to. You can't tell me 33 versus 1, honestly.
33 passengers and one driver.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's your life in line. It's your family that's going to go home without fathers and mothers. So again, it's a collective responsibility. For us to achieve comprehensive, beautiful roads, we really have to be vigilant.
Okay.
Yeah.
The measures that have been announced by government, first of all, like reinspect all the school buses. That's number one.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, there's what the CS had announced earlier, and then he had suspended and said, now we have got to go back into this. We've got to retest all PSV drivers, retest all heavy commercial drivers. Do you support that move? Do you think it's important for us right now to conduct a fresh test for all your drivers in, for example, the PSV sector, and do a complete retest for all drivers in heavy commercial vehicles, and then maybe go on into the other civilian drivers?
I think I would have approached it differently. First, I would have embarked on a serious research to be able to identify what the problem is. Why are we having increment in road carnage? Okay.
Yeah.
Then after that, I'll use the research to implement, because now again we cannot make a decision, reactional decision just because something has happened. We are not actually curing the disease, And I think there's a need to establish research institutions before we just go out and make certain statements. Of course, it's important to retest. And then actually, again, that shows laxity on their side, which means they were never retested. That's why they're not sure whether we have credible drivers on the roads. And the question is why? What went wrong? Who slept in their job? Yeah. And if in the first place these people were on the road without being tested, that's a problem.
That's an issue.
That is an issue. Yeah, that is an issue. And how sure are we that the test will be done to the right population that will help the road carnage go down? That's another issue. Yeah, because every time there is a crackdown, number one target is Matatu. And why is that? Definitely, we ferry cash, we are mini banks from point A to B. Yeah. And the drivers and the conductors, they have a target to meet so that at the end of the day, they can give some money to the owner. And they don't want to be stopped. So it becomes, it's like you create an avenue for corruption, and that needs to stop. If at all we're really, really genuine into bringing down the road carnage issue.
So what I'm hearing from you, basically, you're saying that even as you embark on this immediate, you can just say these are emergency measures.
Yes.
But ideally, this should be informed by proper data.
Absolutely.
And we're even saying that before you got in here. This is the job that NTSA has. As the body responsible for developing policies on road safety in the country, those policies should be data-driven. So how much data, what do we know about the road situation, the safety of our roads in our country, infrastructure-wise, driver-wise, vehicle-wise, behavior-wise, pedestrian-wise, all road users, what do we know about that? So we don't have that. But then you're also saying that you would like, and I want to come back to this point where you're saying the Matatu Owners Association is advocating for one institution that is either established by government or accredited by government, where all PSV drivers go through it for training before they are given a driver's license. Are you saying that you don't have confidence in the current structure where we have many licensed driving schools?
I would say yes and no.
Start with the yes.
Yes, because definitely, I mean, I'm a trained driver, so at least I can ascertain. There's some element of truth. Yes, I've gone through
some training that happens.
Yes. But how do you accredit that I'm properly trained? You see, I'm trying to I'm trying to borrow from maybe the aviation, the maritime. There is accreditation that you're properly trained. There is, what do you call it?
Continuous assessment?
Yeah, there is that continuous assessment. You have to go back because you're ferrying public.
Yeah.
Is that the case with Matatus? No.
You trained once 20 years ago.
That's it.
Keep renewing.
Exactly, you keep renewing. And you're ferrying 33 lives in a span of 1.5 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a case study? Is there any country that has this thing that you're talking about?
Of course.
Tell us.
Mean, when you go to Sweden...
Tell us how they work.
First, the public transport. Actually, it's not public transport. There is no public transport. It's owned by the government. So I think Kenya is among the countries that public transport is purely owned by
so then
private
it's actually
sector.
not public.
It's not
It's not
public.
public
Exactly.
transport.
Exactly.
On the other side, it would be public transport
Exactly.
because it's government owned.
Yes.
In Kenya, there's
In
actually
Kenya.
no public transport.
Exactly. Yeah, it's private owned. But this is an institution that should not just be let to operate by itself. We need some regulation because you're ferrying the citizens of Kenya, which needs to be protected. And who can protect them? It's the mandate of the government to protect its citizen by making sure the people who work for them, and especially Matters Life, are well trained, well certified, even if it's a private institution. Yeah.
Would it make sense then, from what you're saying, and who would be the body then who would work on something like this? Because I do think right now that everybody who's trying to grapple with the solution right now is trying to say, okay, so who would it be? Would it be NTSA? Would it be a special committee under the Ministry of
Roads and
Transport? Would it be those who understand what it's supposed to be would set this up to have a department whereby there was continuous assessment of this particular sector, because they do make up close to the majority of the vehicles on the road in Kenya today, whether it is short-term travel within cities and towns or long-term travel over 4 hours on the highways, right? So who would that be, and what would make sense, and what would they be looking for to make sure that, beyond your wits being about, that you are actually following and that you are aware of what the rules are? Who would that be, and what would make sense?
Who would that be? That should be NTSA, because they are the regulatory body of every public transport. So the buck stops with them.
And how often do you think, take a Matatu operator, for example. So now here we are looking at the driver and conductor, or how many ever there are for a vehicle. What kind of a regularity would be required for this continuous assessment? A year? 6 months? Things change? What would make sense?
It should be a continuous process.
Every what?
Not every day. It should be a continuous.
There should be an assessment every day?
No, not an assessment.
Okay.
No. We should have people on the road, okay, who should be able to identify that maybe that vehicle is not being driven well. There is a need to establish, what do you call it? The road cameras, and I think Waziri Murkomen actually.
He said that they would.
He said
they call them telemat.
Yes, there is a need to automate our whole traffic system, that you don't have to stop to pay fines and all that. Yeah, there is a need to put cameras on our roads. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think should happen where there's a flouting? Because in the things that he mentioned yesterday, which we read in the report today, there are two things that came into play: flouting of traffic rules and things like overloading, etc., etc. What do you think should happen? What do you think should there be on-the-spot fines like we see happening in Tanzania? If you break the speed limit, if we check your car, for example, and you do not have a working speed governor, you do not have seat belts, you do not have this, that, the other thing, which again, we're looking at are the causes of accidents: overspeeding, lack of proper safety infrastructure, etc., etc. You don't have those things, spot fines? Or are we saying there should be some kind of deterrent that should be put in place so that in your head as an operator, then okay, if I do not follow the rules, there is a punishment. And so automatically it makes me want to say, look, for anything else, I don't want to get in trouble. So let me abide by the rules. What should that look like?
I'm in support of instant fines, but let them be friendly. Once you make them hefty, you introduce corruption channel. Let them be friendly, because also as Kenyans, we really need to support our governments to pay its bills.